Good morning. So yeah, what a timely thing, what our training is today, huh? Uh, One thing's nice, I've gotten together a map list of where everybody in the congregation lives so I can see who's in the evacuation area and who isn't and reach out to them if they need help. So we're working on getting it better. Times like these, we need to know difference on pre-evacuation, voluntary evacuation, mandatory evacuation. Pre-evac, yeah, there is an area in Teller County that's in pre-evac, but I think all of us in this room are in pre-evac right now to know what to do so you're not doing it at the last minute. So it's time to get ready to refine your evacuation plans and how to put together kits and what to do in the event of it. Just like in the old days in school, you did fire drills so you knew what to do when it happened. And then in voluntary evacuation, some of you may not live in the evacuation zone, but are in pre-evacuation, but you have only one exit route, or you have more physical needs. So if they're in pre-evac, you might want to think about going ahead. I know, Dee, you live in a place where there's only one way in and out. I know when I first moved up here, every morning I would drive the county, finding every back little road and trail, so I know lots of evacuation routes. And then, of course, mandatory evacuation. They tell you to go. Don't be too proud. That's your life is worth a lot more than your stuff. And then when it comes to preparing now, you need to know how to get that information. You need to have, one of the first things, and I never didn't think until I was studying up on this, during this pandemic, most everybody has an N95 or a KN95 mask. Don't get rid of them. Think about, they protect from microscopic level things as like a virus. Smoke is a bigger particle that you can see. Those are valuable for that. If there's, even just if you're not in an evacuation, some of these fires come through, and if you have breathing problems, wear it. There's an alert called Peak Alerts that you can sign up for. I've got information out on the counter in the narthex. Peak Alerts covers El Paso and Teller counties. So if there's any kind of a flood or fire evacuation, safety notices, law enforcement alerts, anything like that, you'll get it communicated on. So make sure you get signed up for that. Because, it'd be great if they call your house, but what if they call your cell phone? And so no matter where you're at, you've got that alert. So Peak Alerts. There's also, if anybody knows of anyone that has problems, physical problems that they might need more assistance, Teller County has an emergency assistance response program, and I've got forms out in the narthex that you can fill out. I've already handed them to a few people in our congregation that has mobility issues, but you fill these out and send them into the sheriff's department, so if there's any major event happens, they know that individual needs help, and they can send right away, know that they're there. So in getting ready, we want to go to a family emergency plan. And I do have wildfire evacuation checklists out there, very detailed ones for a go bag, what to wear, how to prepare your family members, your pets, livestock, preparing your vehicle, and if you do, what to do inside of your home to get it ready, outside of your home, what to do to get ready. So gathering supplies. There we go. You want to have enough supplies for your household, including first aid kits in your go bag or in your car. So when you gather them up, either have them by your door or have them in your car. I'll go over some of the things that I found to put in these kits, but yesterday I did a thing with the Mountain Sky Conference, and I got a little bit more information that wasn't included in this, and good things to think about. But being prepared allows you to be ready to avoid unnecessary excursions, dealing with stuff at home at the last moment. So you stock up as you can. Not everybody can afford all those things. And it might be something we want to look at in the future is doing some kind of a collection of go bags for members of our congregation. So that might be something for us to, and that's not part of this. It was just me thinking that in the moment. That might be a good thing for us to do, to either for our congregation or members of the community. So being good stewards in our community. So our list has a whole lot of things that you would want to have in your car to take with you, your prescription medications and glasses. So hopefully that's all in one thing that at the last moment you're going to throw in there. If you have children, you want formula and diapers already in there. Thinking about your pets, have a go bag for them. And it's the next one, photocopies of credit cards, identification, insurance papers, all that stuff. We've got a little box about the size of a briefcase that all of our important documents, and it's a firebox, and it's got a handle on it, and so in the event of emergency, you just grab it and go. But I never thought about going ahead and making copies of all of that other stuff already in there. I mean, we put titles and wills and marriage licenses, but what about all this other stuff? And think about passwords and stuff like that, maybe on one sheet of paper in there. And another one from that conference meeting that I was in, how many phone numbers, important phone numbers, do you remember nowadays? I mean, we used to remember tons of them, but now they're all in our phones. Well, what if something happens to your phone? Write them down, print them out, and put them in that go bag. I heard that yesterday, and I was like, duh, I don't even know my own father's phone number, and I call him every night, but it's just a push button. So, yeah, write them down. Have some cash in there in that go bag, because what if you go somewhere and something's happened and their internet's down and they can't take credit cards? So have some cash in there. In your car, which we up here kind of know this, a sleeping bag or warm blankets, especially in the winter, but even this time of year, we're getting down into the 30s, sometimes the 20s at night. And having change of clothes, sturdy shoes, fire extinguisher. I have a fire extinguisher in my truck 12 months out of the year. Of course, driving the roads I do, if I happen to be there and some knucklehead had threw a cigarette out the window and I'm the first one there, I could at least address it. But think about all the different things you may do. I mean, hopefully if you had to evacuate, you could go to an evacuation center or a nice hotel somewhere, but that may not be true. So in that go bag, maybe mess kits or paper plates and cups and things like that you would need to eat with. Water and non-perishable food for several days. This one, it says battery-powered or hand-cranked radio that receives NOAA weather alerts. But, I mean, yeah, it's nice to have, but with cell phone technology nowadays, you can get so much more than that. But a first aid kit, that should be in your car anyway, all the time. Once again, it talks about dust mask, but when this was made, I think this was before COVID, and everybody have N95 or KN95 masks. If you don't have them, get them, put them in your kits. Hopefully society at large won't be mandating mask mandates again, but they are definitely a safety issue for heavy smoke. And you want in that kit, if you have natural gas at your home, and you need to shut it off, you need what they call a non-sparking wrench or something to turn it off. And I'll go over dealing with your utilities in a little bit, but local maps. I've got a Colorado topographical map. What's nice is those will show you forest roads and things like that that are smaller, that are not necessarily on regular maps, that if you need to get out of there. Another thing I put in our cars is bolt cutters, because sometimes some of those fire roads are closed certain times of the year, but if that's the only direction you can get out, I'm gonna cut their lock and go through it myself. I'll ask for forgiveness later, but just one of those, it's what I got in my car all the time. Next one. Some of these I've already talked about, but this one, the third item, some chlorine bleach in a medicine dropper. That way, for one, you can make disinfectant, or you can purify your own water, and it tells you about how much per gallon to purify water. So the next slide, when you're thinking about a go bag, you think about all these different things and how many things that we're taking, like nowadays with the COVID, hand sanitizer and stuff. Well, think about if you're in a flammable situation, hand sanitizer may not be a good thing for that kit because it's got alcohol in it. It's flammable. So you kind of need to think through of these kits of, you don't want aerosols, cooking oils, rubbing alcohol, so those kind of things. Make sure that your cell phones are charged up and maybe have a backup charger in your go kit. So next, going to your utilities. And these dealing with utilities are different for people that live in town and then the ones that live more rurally. In town, you've got natural gas. And it's important if something like this is going on to know how to shut off that natural gas. But you should always know how to do that. And then if you have a problem, know to turn it off and contact the provider. But if for some reason you think to evacuate and you turn it off and then you go a day or two and decide, it's safe to come back home, only a qualified professional can turn it back on. In other words, you got to call whatever your natural gas company is to actually turn it back on. You live more rurally, you have a propane tank, it's not as much an issue, but definitely turn off the propane tank. And propane tank, you don't have to have the company come out and turn it back on. Things to think about on electricity. Know how to shut off all your electricity. In town, I would recommend if you had to evacuate, you turn it all off. In the country, your well runs off of electricity, and they may very well need your water source to help combat a fire on your property. So, like I said, in town, they say, turn off all your water. Well, and also in town, if it's a major catastrophe, the water lines might get damaged and might contaminate the water. So you want to turn off the water coming into your house, and then and then you can wait until they tell you it's safe to turn it back on. But like I said, if you're out away from the city and you don't have city water, leave it on. Leave hoses, long hoses, accessible to where they can come in and they can fight the fire. Sometimes, the first guy on the scene is alone in a truck, and if there's a hose right there, he can start fighting the fire immediately, waiting for everybody else to show up with the big equipment.
I thought that was one reason not to
for when you live out of town, but within the city, you've got all the fire hydrants everywhere. And it's not as much of an issue. I mean, it's good news, bad news in city. I mean, it's probably not that big of a deal. The only thing is if the city water gets damaged during this, it could be contaminated, so you don't want it coming into your house. So that's the only reason for in the city water.
Ford fire. We lost a couple of houses. They didn't turn the water off. The two-story buildings collapsed on each other. Now we've got broken water lines and stuff. So now we're losing the water. So if you're in a subdivision and that type of area, I would recommend you turn the water off.
Right, yeah, they don't need unneeded ruptures in the system on a community system.
Because we're going to be bringing in structure trucks along with tankers to supply those with. Now, like you said, in the more rural areas, we have the smaller pumpers. They don't carry as much water. They will have tenders, but they're few and far between.
Yeah, that's a big difference between living in town and living out there. Yes, Lee?
Maybe this is you or Dee. I was told when I've had to evacuate before, there's a high probability that we'll turn off the electricity if they can in the imminent fire area, because that creates another problem for the firefighters with live lines.
That's right. Especially with high power lines will come in, will shut the areas down. At my house, I have my panel in the house I turn off. Plus I turn the panel, I have a box out on the pole that I shut down. A lot of things that you guys don't think of, but we're out there fighting fire and a tree comes down across the line. All of a sudden now we've got a charged line on the ground. So it's sparking, it's doing everything else. It becomes a hazard to us out there as firefighters on the line. So I definitely would recommend shutting your power in your house off. The power company, if there's a fire coming through that community, they're probably going to shut the main transformers down anyhow.
Yeah.
Tied to that, when I got evacuated before, the posse told me to pull the little string that hangs down on your garage door.
Yeah.
If you have the ability to move your cars out, want to leave your cars secure, it's nice to keep them in your garage. But if your house catches fire, there's gasoline in your garage. But the little pull thing allows folks to get into the garage when the power's off.
Right. The other thing is with cars, get your car away from your house, get your car away from large, big trees, because the radiant heat will heat up that gas tank and can explode it. So, and just because your car's enclosed, radiant heat can ignite that car. Whatever you've got in that car can be ignited. So you've got another fire hazard there.
I know for electricity, as far as on my house, what I do, I turn off everything in the house except for the well, only because that way they still have water available. And if they turned off power to my property, I've got an emergency generator that turns on anyway, so it would be powering my place up anyway. But that way, at least if that happens, I've got everything else turned off in my house except for my well. So for rural areas. Not all houses have inside of them have a turnoff for the water. If you don't, I'd recommend seeing if you can get one installed. That way you've got the ability, because in town you've got to be able to have a special tool and go out by the street and open the cover and turn it off. Well, have a valve inside of your house where it's coming into. That might be a good idea.
And have it leave.
So probably the next one. So during,
Turn the gas off.
pardon me?
How do you turn the gas off in town?
In town, you will have where the gas meter is on the side of the house, and there is a valve on there that you've got to use a wrench to turn it. You got to turn it 90 degrees. It's an oblong, it's about yay big. It's an oblong thing that you got to use like a crescent wrench. And you just turn it 90 degrees and turns it off. If you don't know, and you can either ask your power company to come out and show you exactly where it is and how to do it, or,
The gas meters out by the street.
well, that's where, if you can't figure it out at your own house, either bug me during the week and I'll come over and take a look, or call your natural gas company and they'll come. But yeah, important things to know. You want to know how to turn off all your power to your house, all of the gas to your house, all of the water if necessary.
Normally, Joe, the valves are next to where the meter is on the gas.
Yeah, wherever your meter is, your gas meter is where the valve will be.
Sometimes they're in the ground in a concrete vault. In some communities, most of the time out here, they come out of the ground, there's a meter box, and they go back down. And like Tim said, if the stop is up like this, it's open. When it's like this, it's closed. And I don't think you need a special tool except a crushing wrench to shut it off with. It's fairly well protected, so you're not going to have a spark issue that way. I don't feel.
So if you're stuck at home during a fire, well, first of all, during a fire, if they tell you to get out, definitely get out. But if you're not able to for some reason, definitely call 911. Let them know that you're trapped. And if they say recommend that at that point, if you're still there, turn on all the lights outside so they can see better to get in there to help you. Make sure you've got your N95 mask. If you can turn off the outside fresh air coming into the house, turn that off. If you have standalone air filters, we've got a couple of them, dust filters and stuff in the house. Keep those going to keep the air better in there. But be using your N95 mask. Choose a room and close off from outside air as much as you can.
And shut windows?
Definitely shut all the windows, yeah. And another thing, if you have time, even if you do evacuate, if you have time, pull down curtains. Because, that fire just outside, that much heat through that window, those curtains will ignite real fast. What if the outside structure's fine and it blows through the windows and burns your curtains and then burns it from the inside out? So if you have time, do that. They say furniture, move away from outside walls, all those kind of things. In an evacuation, you probably won't have time to do that kind of stuff. But if you're, staying longer or have to endure through it, try and do all those things to keep yourself safe and reduce the amount of fire hazard.
That, turn off the ventilation from outside is also true in your car. We drove through the fires in New Mexico.
Yes, the recirc on next to your air conditioning setting.
So we recirculated inside the car air and had nothing coming in from the outside. The dog can't breathe.
We've been doing that this week, driving in past that fire, the high power fire. Yep, good to know. And also, close your dampers in your fireplace. That's another outside air. Anything that's an outside air coming in. So let's say you're returning back home after a fire, but okay, you don't do it until, of course, it's safe to do so. Usually they'll have the roads blocked off and won't let you anyway. But just keep in mind there may be hot ashes, smoldering debris, and heat pockets that can burn you or spark another fire. And these fires, in the duff, what I'm calling duff is leaves and needles and all the debris on the ground. That fire can be down underneath there and traveling on a route or something and come up a week later. So returning to a fire zone, really be attentive on that kind of stuff. Once again, coming back in, there's still going to be a lot of debris and and dust particles and everything. You're going to want to wear those N95 masks. But especially if you have asthma or COPD or anything like that, really take precautions on that. And it might be, if you do have someone with breathing issues, maybe not return quite as fast. Take care of yourself first. So, and reach out to family, let them know that you've come back and that they're not trying to get in there to help you and cause more problems. But, so definitely write down all those phone numbers. I learned that yesterday, and that was a big aha moment. It's like, duh, I don't even remember my own father's phone number, so I don't even know my mother's cell phone number, and she lives with me. Any questions? We're going to be in the near future starting up a committee, a disaster committee for the church. And some of it does entail getting our congregation ready. So you guys have been kind of prepared what that committee is going to be doing anyway, but we're going to be keeping the congregation safe, keeping the building safe, keeping everybody safe here, that we're still able to do business. But in the coming months, we're going to be doing that more and more, and we'll probably be asking people to step up, at least to volunteer their special abilities and things like that in the event of a catastrophe, whether we're helping our congregation or we're going to be helping our communities at large and everything. So be on the lookout for a lot of that coming up. So.
Jim, well, I'm going to want to tell you guys, don't wait for the mandatory evacuation.
No.
Get out of Dodge.
Well,
Right now,
we've
right
seen
now.
the horror in this last few months. Look at that Marshall fire. I mean, those people didn't have 5 minutes to get out. They were banging on the doors, and luckily, I think there was only one life lost in that. That's amazing for how fast that fire went. But yeah, don't take a chance on it.
With the
But
winter
get
we've
these-
had lately, and as dry as it is, this fire's gonna run fast. With the brine fuels we've got out there, fire can run a mile a minute. You're not gonna have a chance.
Well, look at how high the winds have been lately, too. You know, well, that Marshall fire, they had 100-mile-an-hour winds with it. You know, how are you going to battle that? So, yeah, don't take a chance. But look at the materials I have out there. I've got some things for preparing your property and your house. And then I've got a lot of things on what to prepare as far as go bags, preparing your go bag in your car and your home, and pets. Definitely remember your pets. One thing I did come up with on the pets, you may know your pet real well, and oh, they're nice and docile under these kind of conditions. They'll take on a whole different, they may even get mean. You know, make sure you keep them on a leash. The dog that always stays by you all the time, during something like this, they may not. They're going to panic. They don't understand what's going on. So take care of them. Realize that their attitudes are going to change. If you have multiple pets, just because they got along before during something like this, they may not get along. But make sure you have a pet go bag. We've got a pet first aid kit. So you got your pet first aid kit. You got a couple days worth of food in the bag, something like that. You don't want to be thinking about those things at the last moment and heading down the road and oops. So, okay, thank you.